Welcome. This will be my review of the 1991 arcade game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, not to be confused with the movie Turtles in Time. I am going to keep this spoiler-free until the very end, and I will verbally warn, but there's a couple of things that I do want to talk spoilers for when I get there. So I played this on PC via the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. I absolutely love this game. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be because a lot of things about this game are kind of just basically the same but one step up from the 1989 arcade game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm going to try really hard not to just repeat what I said about that game in my video specifically on that, and I will direct you to simply watch that one and instead try to build on. So I don't always these days talk about the plot of these video games. Sometimes it's irrelevant, sometimes there just isn't one, especially for some of these arcade games, and sometimes it's just don't really feel like it for whatever reason. I feel like it, and you'll know why. So one thing I will reiterate about the first game, in that one, they went with Shredder kidnaps April O'Neil, and you, whether by yourself or with up to 3 friends as the Turtles, have to go free her, which apparently there were like 5 Turtles games that had that plot. So I do appreciate that they didn't repeat that here. I hope you're sitting down. So, for the following, what would be the most American plot for something like this? Keeping in mind that, hypothetically, like, children should be able to play it, so you can't go too mature. Oh, right, the game is rated E for everyone, so will this video be. And they already, already used the kidnapping thing. What they do here, and this is not a spoiler, this is the opening cutscene. Basically, Krang in the android body, which I'm just gonna say I'm so happy that we got to see it in its full size. That was such a cool thing about the cartoon. I thought it kind of sucked when they got rid of that aspect. I'm not giving away when exactly that happened. And I thought it was a silly way for it to happen. Here, yeah, it appears and it is at times a threat to you. But yeah, it flies up to the Statue of Liberty, grabs it, and flies off, prompting the Turtles at home watching it on TV to say, "Put that back." I mean, yeah, what 7-year-old American, boy is not going to, yeah, and I do really appreciate. I forget if I might have even said that in my video on. I always talk about that in at least one of my videos on one of these games where it's like a kidnapping plot. If the kidnappee is not going to have any agency in the plot, like just have it be, a generic threat without a kidnapping. Maybe even to like a part of the city, or like have them steal or break an object, because like we do know conservative Americans, they do value objects, material possessions, private property over human lives, and it's just tired to have, and misogynistic to have a woman be kidnapped as like her role in the story. But yeah, that was that's a really great way to open this. And I once again played as Donatello. So some of what I say in this might be primarily for him. And let's see. I think the various the four turtles play, you know, roughly the same as in the first, as far as, you know, they have their different weapons, and yeah. So something this adds, and I really appreciate. Well, let's see. There's a couple of things there. So I think I'm going to start with the... While I did not think that it was really a problem in the first one, you know, you're moving around, I want to say it's New York City. It's one of those American big cities. And I know every New Yorker watching is really angry that I made reference to the fact that New York is A, not the only American city, and B, some of the other ones, to those of us who do not live in America, it can feel not interchangeable, but we're not necessarily, yeah, you're not the center of the universe. Anyway, yes, in that one, you're moving around New York City. And in this one, and I'm gonna give details in the once I talk spoilers in the but it's not a spoiler to say this one has time travel. You know, it's right there in the title, you know, and they use it really well. The moment that I heard the concept, I was excited. I'm fairly confident I did not play this as a kid, unlike the first of these. Yeah, they use it really well. They picked some cool places, you know, geographically and in time to go to, and got really creative with it in a way that the first one being limited to present day New York, 1989 New York, just there was a little bit of a limitation there, you know. And I think that does pretty much, yeah. So one new thing that this has as far as gameplay goes. So the first one has that, you know, in addition to just an attack from just standing, you can also jump and attack, and I think it's 2 or 3 attacks total, depending on whether you hit attack right as you're jumping, at the top of your jump, or as you're what's the word? As you are starting to land again. You know, there's 3 different ones here. This one, I think it's still that there's 3, but one of them is really effective for when you are surrounded. One of them is this sort of dash, I believe it's referred to as, and that one is great for when there are multiple on one side of you, which does mean that you are opening yourself up to being attacked from the other side if you engage in it, because until you have completed the dash, you are very vulnerable. And that's a really great cost-benefit analysis there. And I think that does pretty much cover that. The enemy design, still, we have a lot of reskins of the foot soldier. You know, that is still a little bit of an issue here. But there are several brand new ones, and I'm slightly uncertain if it's that they had appeared on the show by the time this was developed, or if they were thought of for this game and then afterwards they were put in the show. Either way, love their appearance on some of their appearances on the show and their appearance in this game. I thought my face was going to crack open from how broad of a grin from some of these enemies. Like, holy crap. And none of them are like bad, but several of them were like, it's just like the show. And they but yeah, they continue to have, they have just varied enough movement patterns, and the way they'll attack, the range, speed, stuff like that, there's good enough variety that it doesn't feel, like visually it was a little bit too samey at times, but you are, constantly being challenged to yeah. And I thought it worked that they do bring back some of the, some of the reskin foot soldiers have the same, so like spear or javelin or whatever it is, sword, stuff like that. But yeah, this also has rampaging, ravaging robots. Really, Roadkill Rodney got some competition for how irritating they can be and how satisfying they are to defeat. And yeah, the AI is good. The enemies will try to surround you, circle. There were times where they realized what attack I was about to pull, how I was about to approach them, and they started to like take it into account. Like maybe one would like move a little bit away, forcing me to perhaps follow while which can enable another one or more of the others to approach from the other side. Maybe they'll surround me, trap me in a corner. So that was really great. And yeah, as far as atmosphere also, like they really managed to capture these different places very, very well. A lot of the levels feel unique from each other in a very, yeah. And let's see. The graphics are roughly the same. Not too much has happened there. And the sound design continues to be really great. The way that attacks, both yours and the enemies, sound is really like, there's a real sense of threat to enemy attacks towards you, and it can make you feel kind of powerful when you attack. So very nicely done on that. And they again have some voice lines that help make it really work. And the music again really feels like the show. And yeah, so it is slightly more challenging than the first. It is very much one of those things where, if you're really, really good at the first, this will not be a huge, yeah, okay, I'm starting to repeat myself. We're going to move on. And I guess a little bit more on challenge. So when I played the first, I used the rewind function a bunch. This time, instead, I tried to just get a ridiculously high number of continues, and I don't think I ended up rewinding at all. And that does also mean, that you won't have to use the rewind, and if you really struggle, you can. There is a level selector that you can even use even if you haven't already completed the levels. Personally, I prefer using it only as the, just like I feel like, well, if I got that far into the game and there is a level selector, then the fact that I died might mean that I'll use a level selector to just continue from the level I got to. But yeah, hypothetically, if you wanted to, you could skip And it is very much like these games. If you didn't grow up with this level of like kind of punishing difficulty at times, it's probably going to be really irritating to you if you don't have stuff like that. And there's also, you can adjust difficulty. I think there is even a God mode. I don't think I ended up ever testing it, but everything else in the game works. So I can imagine it does as well. And let's see. Yeah. So the level design is really nicely done. They did a very effective job of making it like, essentially they have to distract from the fact that essentially you're always walking in one direction, left to right. And like any level, there's going to be, some number of minutes from when you start walking at the very start to reach the very end, and you're always walking in that one direction. And the level is not necessarily going to hugely change over the course of it. It's the same overall setting, so I was never like bored with the surroundings. And I think that does bring us to I rate this 8 shell-shocking adventures through time out of 10. And we're going to get into some spoilers. So I'm probably going to talk at least a little bit about basically every level. So let's see. Well, possibly not every single one. But anyway, so from here on out, if you, stop watching at this point, if you don't want to know what, anything about levels and enemy types more than I've already said, because that's why I put it here at the end and warn. So you start in New York. Let's see. I think you maybe walk through like a. I'm not 100%. It's been days since I played the first level, so I don't remember exactly what that. But yeah, there's the first couple of levels are New York, and that's where we're going with. It was really, really cool walking across the bridge, and then like Krang flies across some of the background, then lands and starts firing laser eyes, and you have to be careful not to get knocked into that. Yeah, so cool. And you surf through the sewers, which so glad that they brought that back. In the first one, it was slightly different, but it's the same. It's so cool. I think it's in the New York levels where you fight. There's this robot that's got like boxing gloves, which is also a good way to like keep it from being a little bit too intense, because like a robot punching a human or humanoid is going to be, that's a lot, but yeah, it's got boxing gloves and it moves just fast enough that it's difficult to outrun, and you gotta lure it to very, very nicely done on the tactics of that. And in the sewers, you fight one of my favorite from the hold on, I'm skipping ahead slightly, aren't I? I believe it's in New York that you fight Baxter Stockman, having gone full Cronenberg, full Brundlefly. That was always one of my favorite. The first of the Baxter Stockman as a Fly episodes was one of my favorite episodes as a kid. I was so happy to have it on VHS. Like, they knew, okay, kids are going to want to watch this over and over. We're going to sell VHS tapes if we put this as one of the episodes, And yeah, the movement and the attacks, it was so cool. It was exactly what I wanted from that sort of thing. But yeah, so in the sewer, you fight one of my other favorites, the little xenomorph, yellowmorph things, that just so cool. Yeah, that was another thing that like they knew, okay, kids are not gonna watch Alien, I hope, but they will watch, they'll really enjoy the slightly toned down, it's not quite as intense as the xenomorph from the Alien movies, but it's cool for a 7-year-old boy, you know? And yeah, they're jumping out of the water just like in, you know, part of the episode is also them hiding in water. So yeah, getting a little bit of Jaws in there. I think that brings us to when the time travel happens, and I do love that it's literally like the Shredder's head appears on the background, and then he says, you know, I'm going to send you through time. Not in those exact words. And then you start going through time, and you actually go to like the prehistoric age, you know, and there's dinosaurs, there's foot soldiers like riding in on dinosaurs, both like on the back of like velociraptors, and some of them are like being carried by pterodactyls. Just so cool. Love it. I forget if they had, I wouldn't rule out that they had at least one time travel episode on the show. I know they did in one of the movies, but that's also, it's such an obvious, like, it's a real gimme, you know, to have time travel in something like this. Let's see. Yeah, I want to say pirate ship, you know, and you're fighting across that. That was also very, very cool. And, you know, foot soldiers will climb onto the ship, I guess, from the water. Presumably they got on there from, you know, they hopped off the one of the vessels in Cold Fear. And they, I think that might cover that way. Yeah. Then there's the train was also really, really cool. The let's see. Yeah, and that's the one where you have foot soldiers riding up next to the train on horses and jumping off the horse, and then you can fight them. Really, really cool. And that's the one where you fight. I have to admit, I do not remember his name. I can't explain why. He was not really one of my favorites as a kid. I appreciate how cool it is that there is an anthropomorphized crocodile. I did really love him in this game, though. Yeah, you know, running around on all fours, and yeah, really, really cool. And I think that might bring us to when you then go into the future. I think it is, if I recall correctly, is like it's Starbase, and you have to deal with all these annoying robots. And then Krang flies in his little flying saucer, and reminding me somewhat of Crash Bandicoot Warped. And he's like, you know, dishing out a bunch of these robots, and just, yeah. I was very relieved when I was able to defeat him. And then you fight the Shredder. I think that might still be in the Star Base. And he's got like a sword, so he's got really impressive range. Really cool way to do it. And a good variation on, you know, the bosses in this didn't feel like just copy pastes of the ones in the first, which is good because like the ones in the first are great for there, but we don't want just that again. Oh, it was very cool when the see, I can never remember their names. I remember that the nostalgia critics said, "Oh, it's like Bebop and Rocksteady," and yeah, there's a similarity for sure. But it was cool fighting them, and I think that does come. See, I do appreciate fighting them did feel somewhat like at least one particular boss fight in the first one, but not in a way that it felt like a letdown or something. Yeah, and so glad to see. It's possible they were in the first, but I don't think they were in it that much. But even if they were, it's great to see here the rock troopers, I think they're called. It's been so long since yeah. And I did watch the show in Danish. They had different names there, but yeah, those were my I always thought they were cooler than the foot soldiers, and just yeah, I think that does cover everything. Yeah, it's I'm so glad that emulation is allowing us to play these games so long after the fact, and it's very smart of them to have all this, stuff to make it a bit more accessible to, you know, modern audiences. I know my critical drinker impersonation is not as spot on as the Morbid Zoos. If you haven't already watched, well, I guess if you're like age 7, maybe don't, but if you're old enough to, the Morbid Zoos video on Predator Badlands was fantastic. And I guess I'll recommend something a little bit more on topic. Phalus, I've always been pretty happy with his videos on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. And I think that does cover this entire thing. Yeah. It's... Yes. Yeah, I was really glad that they, they didn't use up all of the coolest, in my opinion at least, of the enemies and bosses in the first of these, so that they had some for here. It was really, really cool. And like the fact that some of them are like flying around, so you have to like jump and attack to hit them. And Krang likes to spit out these little robots, so you have fairly limited time to hit him before he just flies off, and then you have to deal with the robots again. So that was a really good way to make that distinct. I gotta say, I'm really glad I play as Donatello, because trying to take out the Shredder while he's using a sword, and like if I was playing as Mike or Raph, holy crap. Like, yeah, I don't know. Back then, we kind of accepted the games were ridiculously difficult, and arcade games especially, they were built to eat quarters, and yeah, I think that covers everything. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So the train. A lot of the time, when I say the following, I am talking about action movies, but it goes for video games as well. If you are making a piece of action media, and it can support having at least one action scene or fight level take place in, on, or around a vehicle moving at a high enough speed that someone's going to be messed up if, they fall off it or that sort of thing. In my opinion, it adds so much tension that it's worth trying to fit in there.